2004, 2005, a group of people, again led by our then chairman, by our past chairman, came together. A group of enthusiasts came together and decided that it was time to start women rugby in the country. And for those of us who are familiar to that time, they will remember that we had a team called Vivi. Mwamba also had a section, had a group of the girls. And I would say there was about 2 teams prominently then. And that really would form the history of women rugby. At that stage, it really did not survive for very long. And it sort of went under and then, came back again 2 years later, which is about 2006, 2007. And here we are today. Our objective is very simple. It's really to grow the game, and not just for the very few within Nairobi or the very able in private schools. It's really to ensure that we take the game countrywide. We take it to every girl that has an interest in the sport, and we ensure that it does reach every single corner of this country. Really, for me, I would say that's the primary objective, is to grow the game and ensure that every girl that dreams of someday playing for the national team certainly has a chance to do so.
The main goal of Impact Beyond Olympic Qualifiers 2015 basically is all about growing women's rugby.
This involves, of course, the Kenya Rugby Union, the staff within the Kenya Rugby Union. We have the age grade coordinator, Nicholas Abala. We also have the entire Kenya Rugby Union organization and the various regional offices, and also the input from the clubs, because the whole idea is to also at some point in time see all of the leading clubs have women's rugby entrenched in their programs.
The main aim is putting out the word, letting people know what's happening, especially the development on the girls' rugby and women's rugby side. Currently, we've achieved a lot of successes, especially when it comes to the girls' side of playing rugby. We've had our first schools national games played, where we had a total of about 184 girls taking part, and that was a very huge milestone achieved. Also, we've had our women's league, which has run all the way from April to mid-July. It was a good success because that was the first actual festival, senior women's festival that took part.
What was most surprising was the fact that we had anticipated that we were not really going to have an impact in the regional competitions. But then it turned out that the regional competitions in the regions where we held the competitions were even more competitive than the nationals. And then, of course, coming to the nationals, we also didn't expect to have a full turnout of the anticipated 16 teams, which we actually got. So that actually proved to us the fact that the game is growing and has the potential to even grow further.
We've seen ourselves retain the Elgon Cup almost for the last 6 years in a row. We've also been able to make it to the World Series qualifier 2 years in a row. This year we did a lot of great stuff, and I think it's been really a year of strong formation for us as a federation and as a union. We kicked off the first ever historic 7th demonstration game in the public schools, the girls' public schools, which was just phenomenal to see. And in a lot of ways, it just proved that we actually are achieving our objective of ensuring that the game goes to every part of the country. And of course, we are also a participant in the upcoming Olympics qualifier, which I would say has been, the highest achievement, that we have on record so far as a federation.
All this boiled up to the build-up towards the Olympic qualifiers that our senior women's team is going to take part in South Africa. So basically, this project is a very good founded project that is actually going to achieve its main result, which is putting out the word that girls are also playing rugby, and we should give them that chance to play rugby and expose them to playing rugby around the country.
We want that by the time the ladies go for the qualifiers, they actually perform well, and it's not only about their performance but also ensuring that structures have been set in place structures that last not only for the short term but for posterity, and structures that will play a big role in popularizing the game and making it a game of choice among the Kenyan girls as well, so that we have a good uptake as we do have for the boys, and eventually to see Kenya women rise in stature just like their colleagues in other fields such as volleyball.
It's definitely going to be achieved. What we've got to be is patient. There's not going to be an overnight success program, because the various challenges you have to face once you go out into the country. And people, first of all, for example, when women started playing soccer here, it was a big issue. Why are they playing soccer? This is a man's game. And now you have to move from soccer to playing rugby. So you have to educate people in terms of its availability and the possibility of them playing. Once you do that, then you're able to introduce rugby as a sport. We have a program called GIR, which is called Get Into Rugby. And the basic tenets are try, play, and stay. So first of all, you try with the very youngsters under the age of 8 and below, where they just get on and play. And then the second one is play, when you're between the ages of 9, 13, and 14, where you provide a little structure to what they do. And these are all boys and girls. And then stay is now when they grow older, they turn 14, 15, and we put them in a much more rigorous program, and hopefully they can stay and play. That takes time. What we've got to do is look at the next Olympics, not this one of 2016, but the one that comes in 2020. We should be able to present teams capable of playing there. That's where the success program leads.
An Olympic qualification would be massive. That would be massive. I think that would be the second or third team sport to actually qualify for the Olympics, because I do know that Kenya Hockey have qualified for the Olympics in previous years, same as the women's volleyball team. So having the girls qualify for the Olympics would be massive. It would open up a lot of doors and would highlight the potential that there is in the game in the country.
If they qualify, number one, will get experience in the world stage. Number two, we'll have sponsors knocking in, and sponsors knocking in will trickle down from the Kenyan Lionesses, will trickle down even to that player who's in Form 1, who's aspiring to one day play Kenyan Lionesses.
It will really attract in a lot of attention. It will give our country a massive attention that it requires to grow the game. Basically, with attention comes a lot of interest, and with that comes in a lot of financial support, a lot of technical support, and that will really be a big thing and a big achievement for women to basically qualify for the Olympics. It will really bring about the growth of the game, given that with financial strength, there's a lot of resources that come in, especially in terms of equipment, balls. You have more coaches who will be trained. You'll attract a massive audience who are also curious, and that will really bring in a good growth of the women's game.
I recall last year when we hosted the CAR Women's Tournament, the Confederation of Africa Rugby, which is today Rugby Afrique, and we had 8 women nations, come to play rugby in Kenya. We received massive publicity. For the first time, a lot of Kenyans became aware of the fact that women rugby existed. And as such, just pulling from that and looking at the magnificence or the relevance of the Olympics qualifier and the fact that it's not just a national but an international, a festival, I think will certainly have a lot of good and benefit to the game.
It changes the dynamic completely. It changes the dynamic completely, because right now you're just playing for fun, for enjoyment. But you qualify for the Olympics and the whole world looks at you differently. There's lots more support that you get from the International Olympic Committee, a lot more support you get from our government. We have to put together a strategic plan and a program to sustain this. We can't just say, let's focus on the people who are going to the Olympics by themselves, because we have to develop a chain, so to speak, conveyor belt, one might say, of the youngsters coming through. Because the people who are playing in the Olympics then will grow old and they'll stop playing or they'll move on to other things. We've got to be able to replace them. So what we do is we have to focus on where are we going as opposed to where we are now. Qualifying for the Olympics is one of the greatest things that could happen to any athlete of any sort.
We as an organization are doing what we can and to the best of our ability in highlighting the state of the women's game, in highlighting everything about the women's game. But you realize that it's not enough. And there's the need for that support, because when the women do qualify for the Olympics, it will leave an impact. And with an impact, there should be a legacy created, because number one, that would be historic. As again I mentioned earlier, probably the second or third national team to qualify for the Olympics. This is something that would be historic. But how do we sustain this legacy? We cannot do it alone. We need support from corporate bodies in terms of funding. We also need support from the media in terms of increased coverage. There is a lot of potential. This is potential that can be exploited. So with support from these two bodies, the level of the game will rise, the numbers will increase, and with the coverage, the legacy will be sustained.
I think sometimes this sort of gives me a little bit of comfort in knowing that we're not the only discipline in this country. I mean, the women discipline, and rugby is not the only discipline that is going through the challenges that we see and know. However, that is still not reason to say that we should not be supported as the other squads, are, or the other sports are supported. But primarily our biggest challenge has been, just the inability to raise a co-sponsor for the national team.
I'll say in Africa, in Kenya, they don't support women in sport, and it goes down to sponsorship and all that. There's a lot of struggle. You'll sacrifice so much. See, you go hustle, come to the pitch, train, you have no food, you have so many things. You undergo a lot of stress because you need to hustle for you to maintain where you want to be. There's no that big support.
People consider women in terms of their roles in society as probably mainly the element of bringing up children, and the element of probably the woman being in the kitchen, to do domestic chores and things like that.
We have a lot of women games. We have a lot of girls rugby activities, which can be very, very good trending topics. So I'll urge the media to really pick it up and support our women's rugby, support the growth of women's rugby. Growth can be sustained and increased by basically putting the word out there. And the best people to do that is the media people. So when we have the blogs, we have it trending on Twitter, we have the big media houses taking it up. It will really enable our women's rugby to really grow.
We've got to be able to plan it. It can't just be here in the office at the secretariat with all the staff that we have working it, but it means everybody's got to get involved, whether it's the clubs, whether it's the schools, whether it's parents, the actual players themselves. We all have to believe that this is something that we can achieve. But secondly, we also have to be patient, because results don't come quickly. Just like it took some time for us to get our women's league going this year, it'll take some time, but with the proper structure in place and better direction and policy direction from the board, there's a lot that can be achieved.
I would like to extend a very sincere appreciation to my colleagues on the Kenya Rugby Union board. Importantly, I just wish to give a special recognition really to Rugby Afrique and to World Rugby for all the support that they've extended to us, just all the way from the beginning until now. Because truth be told, we really would not have come this far without their support, and for that I'm grateful.